Hello, let me show you the Proxify working on one of these characters right here. I did this awesome animation. So, and now I'm gonna press create a new proxy and point the rig, and then I will press generate. And as you can see, it's already generated. So things to note, right? If I come back to the original one, there are differences because some of these objects, they rely on specific modifiers. So in order to know exactly which modifiers are needed for every object, I usually use Simplify Plus, and I press this button right here because it will expose all the modifiers being used at this current view or layer of objects on the 3D viewport. I press here and then it will show up only the modifiers. For example, this is the default set of buttons. So if I press this little button right here, it will now expose only the modifiers that are essential for this character, right? So, and then, okay, I will take a look what are the differences, for example, from the source to the proxified one. So I see that, for example, these shoulders right here, they've changed a lot in shape. So what are the modifiers that are important for that one? So I usually hold shift and press these buttons because they will select only the objects that are using these modifiers. So these are the mirrors, these are the shrink wrap guys, these are solidify ones. So by the way, if you hover your mouse, this tooltip will show up. Shift plus click, select all objects containing this modifier. So lattice, okay. So the shoulders rely on the smooth corrective modifier. So then, if I want to preserve certain visuals, I know that I need to preserve also the smooth modifier because it is important for the shoulder. So when I use Proxify Plus, I can come here to the settings of this proxy and I can, currently my theme does not help much. Let me change the theme. With this theme, I can decide to preserve and restore. Okay, this is the section called preserve and restore. All these things are going to be preserved or restored depending on the algorithm being used. So in this case, I want to try to preserve, or in this case, yes, preserve smooth corrective. And I will generate again and see what's going to happen to the shoulder. Let's skip looking to the proxy and press generate. And then I see my shoulder now is being preserved. So, and that's how I go proxifying little by little and checking what kind of visuals I need, because I'm still not quite happy with the eyes. Because if we take a look this region right here and we take shrink wrap objects, probably shrink wrap objects, which are these ones, are needed to preserve these capabilities. So I can come here and say, okay, let's preserve or restore the shrink wrap stuff. So where is it? Shrink wrap. And of course, lattice as well. As we saw, lattice was something important here. So let's take a look. Lattice, yes. Lattice on the face seems to be something important. And let's press generate again and see how this face changes. And looks like the eyelids were better preserved. And I press play again. So now I have a better visual representation from the original in my proxy version. All right. So sometimes things got really hard to see because, not because they were not created, but sometimes we destroyed too much topology, right? And then things like, oh, let's try to come here and say, oh, I want to protect these data blocks right here, which are the pupil. I will try to preserve these ones. So they will be carried over the proxy, but they won't be decimated. They won't be, their meshes won't be processed, but they will be taken to the proxy collection. So let's try this. And all right, I have my 24 frames per second proxified version with better visual representation from my source, you know. So that's it. They tend to work. 4.5, I'm using 4.5. It works, but with the current improvements on Blender 5 and so on, this tool, Proxify Plus, will work even better because, as I said, Blender has its own issues relying on dependency graph stuff. Because to better conclude this, it's running pretty well, but my source now is not running very well. And before I start this video, this source was already working at 24 frames per second on my computer. And why is that happening? Because now we have two collections, the proxy and the original one, and both are sharing the same rig. So even though I hide my proxy, resources are being used here, unfortunately, because this is 4.5. They've corrected that for 5 and forward, but these are issues that have been tackled by Blender developers, and then even though I try to not process the proxy, it's still being processed. So it's a little bit more job to Blender take care of when I have the proxy and the source existing on the same file and using the same rig. They are sharing the same object rig. I talk about that issue on the Blender is broken video. So, and something to know why is that happening is like, okay, let's say I will remove this collection. I will remove and I will purge all this orphan data, and I will press play. It's still not there, as you can see, because even though we think we have purged everything that was related to the proxy, we still have a field holding. Probably we have this field here, which is the proxy collection created, holding references almost like invisibly, but in the core of Blender, they are still holding data here. And that's make us to feel that purging wasn't enough, because on the underlying data still there's something holding here. So how I know that? Okay, I will save this file as it is, and I will now open this file again as it is. So okay, my theme changed because I have another add-on in charge here. I will press play, and as you can see, why is that? I cannot restore my frames per second anymore. Well, because as I said, even though it looks like we don't have much data being held, much data orphan, there's still something being held here invisibly. So I will delete this. Now you purge again. There's nothing to purge. Okay, let's press play. We have 19 frames per second. I will purge. There is nothing to purge, as you can see in this message. But I will press delete. And now I will press play. Nothing happened. I will revert. Actually, delete, purge, save, and then revert. And now I will press play. And now I'm back to 24 frames per second. So it's really complicated to deal with issues with Blender, because as you can see, it tends to hold underlying data that once was being used, and now you want to get rid of that, but Blender is holding some references underneath, and that does not happen on 5. So let's open the same file on Blender 5, 5.2, 5.1. So I will do that right now. Okay, let's see Blender 5.2 alpha. Okay, I'm on the bleeding edge. Great, we have 24 frames per second on the original rig. I will create a new proxy, same thing as before, to show that Blender 5.2 is smarter than 4.5. It's better. So let's recreate exactly the same thing: smooth corrective, shrink wrap, and lattice. And let's regenerate. And also, I forgot to protect the eyelids. Let's protect the eyelids as well, which are these guys. Protect data block. Pupil. Actually, pupil. Eh? Pupil L. Here. Let's generate again. And then let's see already the differences. Okay. Both are running at the same frames per second, 24. Let's revert to the source and press play. Already I see a very good improvement. I don't have that issue because looks like they are aware about these dependency graph issues. They are trying to tackle things. They are trying to make Blender smarter in terms of, okay, what needs to be evaluated. So we already see day and night difference here because I'm able to watch my proxy at 24 frames per second, that existing on the same file, my source, and both are running at this frames per second. Ideal, 24. Okay, so I don't have that issue here because Blender 5.2 will be smarter than 4.5 in terms of what needs to be evaluated and when. And anyway, Proxify works in 4.5, 5.2. Blender has more issues in terms of evaluation in 4.5, as I saw. But things will get much better in next versions of Blender.